want to talk to you a little bit about modeling, because I think we have a lot of people who are tuning in.
Yeah.
We like to establish in every single one of these episodes that this is an inclusive environment, full stop. No matter your background, you're welcome here. We honor you being a part of this conversation, and this dialogue is for you. So as somebody who, as many people do, you come from immigrant parents. You were a Black man in a very, very white environment. Let's just say that for what it is.
Totally, of course.
You had some models, you had some fragments of models, and subsequently in your secondary career, you had really no model because you were the first person to ever do it. Between your family experience and the world at large, what was the importance of modeling to you? How did you create models yourself? And, what did that journey look like for you as you navigated breaking boundaries, without really the roadmap ahead of you?
Yeah, great points there. A lot of that started at home in terms of the models. I had, my mom and dad that both worked full time and that weren't complaining about how cold it was in Canada. That never complained about the snow and the ice and the wind and the winter, which can be pretty extreme, especially in the 70s and 80s, pre-global warming to what it is today. And even today, it's still fairly extreme in Canada. But specifically at that time frame, just based on environmental factors, et cetera, winters were super harsh and hard. And keep in mind, having parents that came from Barbados to Canada to Toronto, that's a very sharp contrast and juxtaposition between palm trees, mangoes, coconuts, and fresh fish, and then ice, road salt to combat the ice, centimeters of snow, inches of snow, the whole thing. That's a very different world. And I never, ever heard my parents complain about that, ever. And they both took public transit until they bought their first vehicle when I started playing elite hockey. So that would have been 8 years. They both took public transit to work, from work, and to everything else. So, and taxis. So, because we lived downtown at the time. So that really kind of set that stage for me, so to speak, in terms of the modeling, because more importantly, I was seeing that at home. And I was very culturally aware, culturally fluent in my culture, because my parents, like a lot of people can attest whose parents are immigrants and fellow immigrants, a lot of your cultural underpinnings are a big part of your identity. So I had that. But then I would say, as far as outwardly beyond the house, there were some players, very few, and they're the odd goalie that played in the NHL. Grant Fuhr being the chief one, who played largely for the Edmonton Oilers with Wayne Gretzky and won all those Stanley Cups. And he's a Hockey Hall of Famer. He was a great goalie, so I loved watching him. He was fun to watch. He was dynamic in the net. He was a champion, played internationally for Team Canada, and so well decorated and had an amazing career. So in a lot of ways, I looked at him. I looked at his style of play and all the success he was having alongside the other Hall of Famers, including himself, but Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, the likes. But then there are a few others that came. Freddie Brathwaite, who played a little bit for the Edmonton Oilers and some for the Calgary Flames, and played in the NHL, whose parents were also from Barbados. So that for me really resonated with me, but not limited to, because there were other goalies that I just loved watching, whether they were white American, white Canadian, European, whatever their background was, because they were great at the craft. So I took from everybody where that's concerned. But if I had to pick one North Star, and I was speaking about this on another podcast yesterday, if I had to take one North Star for me, it's the great Michael Jordan. Like everything, and I remember watching him in 83, 84, and when he first burst on the scene with the Chicago Bulls in the NBA, and then watching his progression and the same level of effort, intensity, consistency, over performance, over delivery, passion, every game. And, I started hyper consuming him at the time. And then the Air Jordan shoes came out, and Sports Illustrated and some of the other publications just trying to just get a glimpse of what he was doing and what he was up to. And among other athletes as well, too, I should say. But one North Star would be him. And watching his progression as a player and his greatness and dominance as a player, I've never seen anything like it. I don't think the world has. But then also seeing him mirror that with his progression as a businessman. And as a son of, for him, of his family and his parents and his grandparents who were sharecroppers in North Carolina, to then becoming the best athlete on planet Earth, to become the best basketball player of all time, but to also kind of augment that with becoming this great business titan as well, and becoming a billionaire and becoming an owner of a team in the Charlotte Hornets right now, as the first former athlete to be a majority owner of one of the big four sports clubs, and the fact that he happens to be Black and as successful and as transcendent as he has been on and off the floor and in the boardroom, it's just really, it's cemented everything that I thought he was. And then having the chance to attend a few of his events and be around him and seeing it 3D up close, I've never seen anything like it. I've never been around anything like it. And you've heard, maybe he's heard some other people describe it. He doesn't walk when you're around him. It's like he floats in the air. Hence his nickname Air Jordan, because he looked that way when he was playing with his elevation, his ability to jump. But in everyday life and being around him, it's like he's hovering above the ground. It's really surreal, and only people that have been around him can really understand what I mean. But I would say he's that one person outside of the home for me that's been that North Star, among others, but he would be the North Star for me.